Hey guys, today we're going to go over a quote often attributed to Thomas Jefferson, though the quote really comes from his commonplace book quoting and was made by an Italian philosopher named Cesare Beccaria. In the quote that's often attributed to Jefferson, the quote says, quote, "The laws that forbid the carrying of arms are laws of such a nature, they disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man." End quote. Now, the real quote, after Jefferson quotes this, he basically he uses this same principle to espouse on the right to keep and bear arms and what laws forbidding those rights actually do. Jefferson said this, quote, "A principal source of errors and injustice are false ideas of utility. For example, that legislator has false ideas of utility who considers particular more than general conveniencies, who had rather command the sentiments of mankind than excite them, who dare say to reason, 'Be thou a slave,' who would sacrifice 1,000 real advantages to the fear of an imaginary trifling inconvenience, who would deprive men of the use of fire for fear of their being burnt, and of water for fear of their being drowned, and who knows of no means of preventing evil but by destroying it. The laws of this nature are those which forbid to wear arms, disarming those only who are not disposed to commit the crime which the laws mean to prevent. Can it be supposed that those who have the courage to violate the most sacred laws of humanity and the most important of the code will respect the less considerable and arbitrary injunctions, the violation of which is so easy and of so little comparative importance? Does not the execution of this law deprive the subject of that personal liberty so dear to mankind and the wise legislator, meaning the right to self-preservation?" He goes on, "And does it not subject the innocent to all the disagreeable circumstances that should only fall on the guilty? It certainly makes the situation of the assaulted worse and of the assailants better, and rather encourages than prevents murder, as it requires less courage to attack an unarmed than an armed person." End quote, Thomas Jefferson. Now, let's go deeper on this. He just said in such a simple way, such a profound thing. Let's go back a little bit. So, can it be supposed that those who have the courage to violate the most sacred laws of humanity and the most important of the code will respect the less considerable and arbitrary injunctions? Meaning, can you really believe that somebody who would commit murder would stop carrying a gun because you put a law to not carry guns when there's already laws to not murder? He says, the violation of which is so easy and of so little comparative importance, meaning if they already have the intent to rob, steal, kill, what makes you think that your law is going to stop them from concealing a firearm or doing anything with a firearm? They still have access to the firearms. They're still going to commit the crime. Your lesser law of not carrying arms is not going to stop them from violating the greater laws of murder. And he goes on even further and says, "Does not the execution of this law deprive the subject of that personal liberty?" Meaning, does this law not only affect the person who abides by the law? Does it not affect those people who follow the law by telling them that they cannot carry arms and expecting the criminal to not violate that law? He said, "So dear to mankind and to the wise legislator, does it not subject the innocent to all the disagreeable circumstances that should only fall on the guilty?" Yes, of course it does. Why people can't see this today, I don't understand. Now, to go even further, he says, "It certainly makes the situation of the assaulted worse," meaning of the normal person who's going to abide by the law. If you're going to take away his right, it's going to make it worse for him when those who are willing to break any law are still going to carry firearms. They're still going to break the law. Now, as he goes on and says, the assailant's better and rather encourages than prevents murder, as it requires less courage to attack an unarmed than an armed person. Of course, now these criminals know that average everyday people are going to abide by the law because they're not criminals. Now they know that they can attack these people and they're not going to be armed. So wherever you see these laws, you see higher gun violence today, which he called back then in such a simple yet elegant way as only Thomas Jefferson could. So think about that. If we look at gun crime today, it's mostly in left-run cities that have high restrictions on guns, but some of the most concentrated areas of gun ownership have the least amount of crime. Why is that? Is a criminal going to go to an area where they know that more than likely everybody's armed? If you look at even the MS word, shootings in bunches, I won't use the word because I'm sure it'll trigger YouTube's algorithm, but 98% of those shootings happen in gun-free zones. So I'll leave you with that quote to think about today. And that's the end. We'll go on to more Founding Father Second Amendment style quotes coming up next.